All right, so good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for being here. My name is David Walton, Event and Program Manager for the Tompkins County Chamber. Would like to welcome you all to the first Net at Noon of January 2021. It is a pleasure to have you all here. We would like to thank you all for being in attendance. We have Svante Myrick, the Mayor of Ithaca, and Jason Molino, the Tompkins County Administrator here, that will be giving us kind of a brief overview of the state of the county or the state of the city as we enter into the new year. But before we get started with that, we did just want to, in the spirit of Net at Noon, allow people the chance to kind of share what programs or initiatives that may be going on at your place of business. I see that we have some people here, some movers and shakers in the community who may have some interesting tidbits of info that they have going on with their organizations. So we would love to open up the floor for any presentations. Think of this as maybe like your elevator pitch, if you will. On behalf of the chamber, I'll go ahead and get us kicked off with some exciting programming that we have coming up that some of you may be interested in. We have a new series that will be starting on February the 25th called our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Training Series. We are partnering with Paula Ionide, Laura Branca, and Michelle Courtney Berry to offer workshops around diversity, equity, and inclusion as we enter into what a lot of people are calling this healing process for our country in 2021. And so it was really important for the chamber to kind of lead the way in doing this work. And we are partnering with Cayuga Medical and the Community Foundation as of right now as sponsors, with Cayuga Med being the presenting sponsor of this program. There will be 6 sessions. The first one, again, starts February the 25th. We just sent out in the Chambergram that the registration information and all 6 of these series, all 6 of the sessions in this series are up currently on Chambermaster for you to register. If you are a member of the chamber, your organization is a member of the chamber, we are offering this programming at no cost to those individuals because we do want as many people to attend as possible. And if you are a non-member or if you know someone in an organization that would like to attend, we are offering the programming at a discounted rate of only $25 per session, or you can get all 6 for $125. So head over to our events page on our website. You'll see all the information. A description is there for each session according to the dates, and they run all the way through May. May 6th is the 6th session is on May the 6th. Additionally, on March 4th, we do have our Fab 5 Young Professionals celebration that'll be taking place virtually. This is the 6th year that we have hosted this event. I do believe Mayor Myrick is a former recipient of a Fab 5 award, so he could also speak to how amazing this ceremony is and how prestigious it is to win one of these awards. We have some great people that have been nominated this year. Winners were just decided and finalized yesterday. So you'll be seeing who those winners are. That'll be put on our website and in the Chambergram on February the 9th, and registration will open then as well. And again, this event, mark your calendars, is taking place on March the 4th. So that's my elevator pitch. If you have something you would like to share, if you just want to raise your hand, or if you want to unmute, or if you want to use one of the reaction tabs to let us know that you have something going on, or if you just want to say hi to people, or if you just want to introduce yourself, if this is your first time coming to a Net at Noon, this would be a great time. Awesome. I see some reaction hands. I love it. So I will go in order of my screen. I see Deb Molinoff will be first to jump out there.
Hi, everybody. I'm just going to put my Leadership Tompkins, Leadership Cortland hat on just to let you all know. Either this afternoon or tomorrow morning, we will finally have the online registration link live for our modified versions. We are kind of merging and reimagining Leadership Tompkins and Leadership Cortland. We're moving that to the virtual world this year. We're kicking that off in February. They're going to be on Friday mornings, the second Friday of every month. And for February, we have the mayors of both Cortland and Ithaca telling what we are calling their lemonade stories. We have decided to do this Leadership and Lemonade series, and you'll see a lot more information about that if you follow either Leadership Tompkins or Leadership Cortland on social media, and the chamber will be helping us push that information out as well. So look for that, and we hope to see you virtually until we can resume those programs in person. And I see a lot of you on here that are graduates of Leadership Tompkins. So thanks for your ongoing support.
Awesome. Thank you, Deb. All right, next up, I had Miss Angela Sullivan. Hey, Angela, good morning. Well, good afternoon. Good to see you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Angela Sullivan, Alcohol and Drug Counsel, for those of you who I haven't met yet. So I think we have two main things I would want to talk about. The first is that we have moved through all the village approvals for our new detox center on Trip Emma Road. So we have our use permits and everything we need to put that project out to bid for a general contractor to do the remodeling. And so we are on a freight train of trying to get this done before the end of the year. So that's the plan. And when complete, it'll be open access, medically supervised withdrawal and stabilization, 40 beds, and 24/7 access for people with mild to moderate substance use disorder. And that's huge. We've been working on that for what seems like my entire life to get that done, but it's been like 5 years. So there's that. And then I would be remiss in here with my partner organization, the Chamber, for the Recovery to Work initiative that we are partnered on, along with Challenge, OAR, TC3, Deb. And who am I forgetting? I feel like I'm forgetting somebody. David, am I forgetting anybody?
Challenge.
Challenge, OAR, TC3, Chamber. Oh, me. We're the fifth.
Yeah.
We're the fifth.
From the workforce, Tompkins Workforce New York folks at the county
Yes.
too. Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Yep.
So essentially this is a coordinated approach to ensuring that people in recovery can gain and maintain employment, which benefits recovery outcomes and the community. And there are lots of incentives to be engaged with that, including on-the-job training grants, which are being administered and supported by the Chamber. Other supports from OAR and Challenge related to addiction as a disease and doing vocational supports. And of course, ADC works as the treatment recovery support portion of that. It's really exciting. It was a grant awarded by the Federal Department of Labor to the Appalachian Regional Commission, which we are part of. So those are probably the two biggest things. If you want to know more about either, drop me a thing in the chat or send me an email.
Awesome. And to that point, Angela, we also have the on-the-job training information on the Chamber website as well. All the details are there for everything you would need to know about what it takes to apply for that program. And if you would like any additional information, you can also feel free to email me. I have a nifty little not a packet, but some sheets of information that I can send your way for any potential employers. And I see that Jennifer just put the link in the chat. Look at that teamwork. Virtual high five, Jennifer. Thank you. All right. Next up, we have Brent Katzman. Good afternoon, Brent. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, David. I'm really glad to be here and happy to see all these faces on what appears to be a bright, cloudy day, or maybe even some sun. So that feels great. I just have a couple of quick statements. I wear two hats right now. One, I'm the general manager here at Morgan Real Estate, and we are always interested in welcoming people to come and speak with our group of agents about initiatives that they think that the agents and or their clients may find of interest in terms of community services and the like. And so I welcome you to reach out to me if you have an interest in having an audience to talk about initiatives that you feel are important to get in front of the realtor community. That would be great. We're also, frankly, watching a really unusual real estate market. I mean, last year, as you all know, was an unusual market or economy for all of us, and a little uncertain about what this year looks ahead, particularly with all the moratoriums that may begin to be lifted on evictions. So if any of you have insight or want to have conversations about that, we would love to begin to get some more insight into how people are feeling in the marketplace. And then on another hat, I work as the chair of the Government Affairs Committee for the Board of Realtors here in Tompkins County. And again, if there are initiatives, whether they are zoning initiatives or legislative things that are going on that you would like some data for or some interaction with realtors about, then please, I'm your guy, let me know, and I'd be happy to connect and see what we can do to be of help. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Brent. All right, I see that we had Bert raise his hand. We will have more time at the end of the session for more share outs and more networking components. In addition to our Q&A, I do want to go ahead because I know that both Jason and Svante have a ton of really great information. So if I saw there were a few more people that had their hand raised, I'll be sure to get back to you when we circle back at the end. So thank you for that. And again, thank you for everyone for being here. I will continue to admit more people into the Zoom today. Before we get started, I do want to take the time to make sure to thank our sponsors for the Net at Noon series. So we want to give a huge thank you to Sharaba Walker, the Hilton Garden Inn, CFCU Community Federal Union, and Sheldrake Point Winery for making the Net at Noon series possible for 2020 and going into 2021. We really appreciate your continued support. I see some people representing those organizations here. So thank you again. In person, we would still shout you out and talk about how great you were, even if you weren't here. All right, so without further ado, I would like to turn things over to Jennifer to introduce our presenters today. And I'm gonna kind of fall to the background here and listen to this great information that we're getting ready to hear.
Thanks, David. Well, I don't have a whole lot to say aside from one tip in case you're interested. I think now would be a good time to put your Zoom setup on speaker view so that you can get the full experience of what our presenters have to share with you. And I really just want to thank Jason Molino, County Administrator, and Svante Myrick, Mayor of the City of Ithaca. We all know how busy you both are, and we're really grateful that you were willing to come and spend some time with us today. People are very interested in hearing what you have to say, as evidenced by how many people chose to visit us today at Networking at Noon. So thanks again for being here. I just want to take a really brief moment to just commend you and your teams and really all the incredible work that our local government leaders have been doing in the last year. Even in a good year, in a normal year, in a growth year, your jobs are often just unforgivable. It's an insurmountable amount of work. It's nonstop. And you know, I think we all can appreciate that to some degree, but the last year has obviously been, I'm sure, the most challenging thing that either of you has experienced. And I just want to say, you know, from everything we see at the chamber, obviously we get to hear a lot of things. We're at a lot of tables for a lot of conversations, but what we've witnessed from both of you and from your teams and from the employees at the city and the county to respond to this public health crisis and to respond to the economic crisis that we're all experiencing together. I mean, there's so many heroes sort of among us. And I know everyone, it just feels like this is their job. This is what they're supposed to do. Of course, that's what they're going to do. They're public servants. But I think it's really important that you hear our gratitude and you understand that we see and appreciate everything that you're doing. So just really briefly wanted to say that because I think it's really important. And first, we are going to go to Jason to do a little presentation and sharing about the state of the county and where we are, especially given everything that we've experienced in the last year together. And then we'll move on to Svante. So please take notes. You can take notes mentally or on paper if you'd like, folks. We will have time for Q&A at the end, and I know that you will all probably have some follow-up questions. So I want to turn it over to Jason now. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer, and thanks for that warm welcome. I think some of our folks from the EOC are watching this right now, and that's the group that has really made it all happen. I think from the public health perspective, from the county's perspective, it's a great team, and we greatly appreciate the recognition. And thank you for the partnerships. I see a lot of folks, familiar faces here, and we've partnered in a lot of different ways as we've all worked through this together. So thank you very much. And thank you for the opportunity to talk today. we have a lot to say. Whether it's interesting, I don't know, but you all can determine that for yourselves. So thanks for enduring it. I did put together, in good bureaucratic fortune, a quick few slides for you all to gnaw on a little bit. I'll share my screen if that's all right, and we'll get right to it. I assume you all can see that. It says Tompkins County update. I'm just going to kind of go through some highlights of things that are going on. Really what we're trying to look prospectively. It's been a challenging year for everyone. I don't know that anybody's not faced challenges. And I think looking at some things on the horizon are important to what we hope to accomplish this year in 2021. But I also think the first and foremost thing on the front of our priority is going to be the COVID-19 response, and now not just disease management, but also vaccination, which is the biggest question that we're getting lately. So I thought I'd put some information together about that and then go into some other items, and then I'd be absolutely happy to talk about anything later or something I may have missed. Real quick, I just wanted to show this graphic because I think it's interesting. It shows our daily activity. It talks about daily new cases in terms of daily active cases, new positive cases. So the blue is the daily active cases. That means the amount of folks that are still active that have been positive through COVID-19. And as you can see, it's spiked as of in the past month and a half. The new positive cases is the orange, and then you can see the 7-day average of new positive cases. It's difficult to identify the trend and where we'll end up in the next 30 days, but we're hoping to see that things will begin to stabilize and hopefully start to decrease. I know the governor has been talking about it over the past several press conferences that things are starting to improve, and I hope we see that trend continuing in a downward motion. But this kind of just gives you a snapshot from July. So if I were to extend this chart out to April, you would see a little bit of a bump in March and April, and then probably back flat to where it is, and then coming into July, another little spike, and so on and so forth. But the past, really since probably post-Thanksgiving, has been the largest challenge for us throughout the past almost year now. But compliments to the folks at the public health department who have really been working collaboratively, the public health nurses, the contact tracers. We actually at one point trained upwards of 40 staff throughout the organization, reassigned them at different times to do contact tracing as we began to hire more folks on board to help manage that process, and really have seen a cross-section of support from the entire organization. Folks that are not contact tracers, but have stepped up to fill that role, and we greatly appreciate that. And it just speaks to their commitment to the community, and department has their commitment to the community by relieving staff or reassigning staff. Some staff are still reassigned. So, for example, Deputy County Administrator Amy Hendricks has been at the EOC, the Emergency Operations Center, managing the event since March. For the most part, fulfilling that as her primary responsibility. Jay Franklin, who we've found out is everybody's favorite county employee, our county assessor. So everybody's always nice to Jay. He has been reassigned to support a lot of the planning efforts. Frank Krupa, also now a common household name, is in the operations wing, and a slew of other staff. Jess Verifus from our doer, Katie Borgello, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, and planning, has been doing a lot of work. So a lot of different staff have come together, and there's more that have been reassigned to take on this effort. So it's quite an encompassing effort. COVID-19, believe it or not, 1 year and 1 day since the first county meeting we had with higher ed and CHS Cuga Health Systems on COVID-19. That's how long this has been in our mind, and we've been working on it. EOC continues its operations. Again, we're not just doing surveillance, disease surveillance, it's now also management of the vaccine rollout. And that's really in huge partnership with Cuga Health Systems. Dr. Stallone and his team at CHS that's really the partnership that I think is really has been the most collaborative with respect to being able to work on disease management together with the testing operation at the mall, downtown, now at the hospital, and then vaccine rollout. If you've had a chance to see the operation up there, or if you've been lucky enough to be vaccinated so far, I think you'll be impressed with the rollout, the layout, the effort up there. And I was up there a few weeks ago on a tour, and the aura is just positive. People are happy to be there. They're excited to be there. They're getting their vaccine. The staff are humming along, and it's quite the setup and operation. We've hired well over a dozen new employees. These are project assistants primarily to support the effort. so we can have some of our existing employees go back to their current positions. Students are returning now, higher ed being a critical piece of the local economy and the community, and we continue to work with them. Cornell, really making surmountable lifts of surveillance testing, something that for the most part, less than probably a handful of actual higher ed institutions have been able to do successfully. And I don't know that they've had the results that Cornell has had in being able to minimize the spread of the disease for the first semester. We hope to see similar results in the next semester. IC also bringing folks back, and TC3 as well. So we're working with all our higher ed partners to make sure there's a safe return of our student body. Again, the partnership with CHS has been critically important. Tompkins County Legislature has been a huge support. We've purchased a Rheonics machine amongst with a bunch of community partners, as well as the city of Ithaca, to support turnaround and quick turnaround and testing results, which is a key component of managing the disease, as well as community testing. We have the legislature now has made its second appropriation of over $300,000 to a total of about 600 grand committed to community testing, so that folks have free testing in our community to help manage the disease. And that, all of these things add up to show why we have low infection rates in the community, some of the lowest in the state, and why we're able to manage it as well. And employers also, CHS having the ability to do testing allows employers to contract with them so that they can get quick turnarounds. To date, over 634,000 tests. There is no county in the state of New York that has been able to do that amount of testing in the setup that we have per capita. So it's an accomplishment. Now onto the more exciting part, I guess, which is vaccinations. Exciting and frustrating, I guess, at the same time at the moment. 2020 was probably the word was uncertainty, with 2021 being the word of patience. Again, to speak to the relationship between the public health department, the county, and CHS is really what has allowed, I think, this vaccination effort to roll out in full force in the effort that we've been able to do it. We have one large mass vaccination site at the Ithaca Mall up in Lansing. To date, it's been over 7,800 vaccines administered. Up until last week, we were getting 1,800 vaccines, or we did get 1,800 vaccines a week. Last week there was none. Partly, the primary reason is that there's a lack of supply. As the state began to open its major sites, 20 major sites across the state, it took vaccine away from other areas and other pods like ours. So this week we did have 600. We were able to vaccinate first responders in pre-K through 12, and that's going on today. Second doses. We had our first second doses this week, and we'll have more next week, over 2,300 next week. So that's starting to come in as well. The frustrating part around this is, one, the supply is not readily available, which means only a limited number of folks can get the vaccine. And the other difficult part about it is that New York State sets the guidelines and eligibility. So as supply is constrained, New York State is setting guidelines and eligibility as who can be vaccinated first, second, third, and so on and so forth. This is a point of frustration, as I'm sure many of you all have your own positions and thoughts and processes, who should get it first, second, and third. The truth of the matter is if there was greater supply available, we would be able to roll it out quicker to more people faster, and that would be less of a concern. Unfortunately, we're working as best as we can with our state partners to understand what those restrictions are, and when we get vaccine, putting it in people's arms as quickly as we can. And right now, there isn't any local shop or local setup across the state that is doing it as effectively as we are here in Tompkins County with Cuyahoga Health System. So it's something to be proud of. And while the thing I say is, while supply may not be there now, one reassurance is that when it does come, we are prepared and can roll it out very quickly, effectively, so we can vaccinate as many people as possible. Questions around the vaccinations or vaccines in general, eligibility. The website is very robust. We were fortunate enough to hire a wonderful young man named Dominic Bracchio. You may know him, and he has done a wonderful job as our communications director, and really and a PIO team have really been able to put information out to the public extraordinarily quickly. Pictures here, these are some CHS folks here doing a registration. No, this is probably registration. This is also probably helping them folks with health insurance at one of the spots in the mass vaccination site, and this is one of our employees that have assisted with data entry. So we do have, there's a collaboration of staff, of both county staff and CHS staff at the mass vaccination site as folks are going through it. So that's kind of the COVID stuff, COVID vaccine stuff. Another major initiative that's on our plate right now is reimagining public safety. Following the George Floyd murder, there was an executive order issued by Governor Cuomo that said, required all communities with law enforcement agencies to go through a reimagining of law enforcement initiative, where you're really starting to focus on how to minimize impacts to marginal populations, people of color, and addressing biases in law enforcement. And we quickly worked with Svante, the mayor, and I got together closely and said, hey, why don't we do this together? And we were able, through the mayor's, excuse me, let me turn that off, through the mayor's connections with the Center for Policing and Equity, we were able to bring in a group that has a lot of work and experience with law enforcement agencies, and created a collaborative effort to approach this from a unified approach, primarily because a lot of our residents, we're all serving similar constituencies. So we worked with CPE, the Center for Policing and Equity, developed a collaborative approach, and had a significant amount of public engagement. You're probably, or some of you may be familiar with the community voice forums. There were 5 or 6 of those where we allowed members of the community to provide feedback on reimagining our public safety initiative. A lot of town halls, specific focus groups that were facilitated by facilitators that targeted certain subgroups and categories in our community, so we could hear from different components of the community, and wanted to make sure we were getting that feedback. Right now, we're in the process of compiling that data and that information to put together a report with recommendations, and the executive order requires me and as the chief executive and the mayor as chief executive of the city to provide this report recommendation to the legislative bodies. They then have to adopt it no later than April 1st. So this is a major step in really trying to reform public safety in general. And what's come into this, and a lot of discussion has been around other services or other investments in alternative services to support how we respond to mental health needs, how we respond to substance abuse needs, how we respond to other calls that in the past traditionally law enforcement may have responded to, but may not be best fit to respond to. And congratulations to Angela and the Alcohol and Drug Council on their approvals, long overdue, and excited to see that facility get up and running to help support the community in those areas of substance abuse as well. So this is probably the first, what I would call the first step of a long stairwell in reform and effort. And it also then filters into cultural change and perspective, not just with law enforcement and public safety, but it's going to talk about cultural change in our mental health world, our Department of Social Services world, and all of the other services that support a lot of our community members. So again, to me, this is a kind of a first step of a longer stairwell of some cultural change to come, but an exciting initiative nonetheless. This is just other stuff. I put it together. And the reason I put it in there is, this by no means encompasses all the work that we have coming up, but just a highlight of some things that I thought were valuable to this group. The pandemic response, first and foremost, is going to be on our hands through 2021 and probably to a certain extent into 22. The state budget was proposed, and we'll be rifling through that and lobbying with our legislators and state legislators to try to ensure that the Tompkins County has good representation in the state budget. Chief Sustainability Officer, this year we created a Chief Sustainability Officer to help work on the county's initiatives, a green fleet and green facilities initiative to achieve a net zero operation by 2040. Rural broadband study. I see Jeff Mattson's on the call right now. Rural broadband has become increasingly, and I think all of you, hence today's meeting, is incredibly important. And this rural broadband initiative will hopefully lay some groundwork to see where investments need to be made for broadband so that all our folks in our community can have access to broadband. Again, partnering with the Chamber, Jennifer and I just spoke this week on a CDBG grant application that the Chamber hopes to assist us with, to providing some economic development grant opportunities to minority and women-owned businesses in the rural parts of our county, which I think will be exciting. It's first of its kind that we've had in this community. Workforce planning continues. I know Natalie and the Workforce Development Board are hard at work trying to identify future needs in our workforce needs and training. Slew of capital programs. I want to mention one specifically. We're working on a backup dispatch center with our folks at Cornell, continuing that good relationship. And then TCAT facility needs, I think, are going to continue to be an ongoing discussion in probably the years to come in the future. The last one I put on there is lessons learned from the pandemic. One thing I think we've learned from the pandemic is the power of relationships that we've been able to develop through this process. You know, we meet regularly with all of higher ed. I don't think that's happened until we had a global pandemic. And maybe it took the pandemic to do that, but the relationships we've built with a lot of our partners are one of the major lessons learned from this pandemic that I think will benefit us as a community as we go out, post-pandemic, so to speak. So that's really the end of it. I just wanted to do a little snapshot there. That's the public health department right there with the electric cars. They're probably more along the line in terms of electrifying their fleet, but we're looking to turn over about 75 vehicles over the next several years to all electric. And lastly, I'll leave you with one message, and that is we encourage all those that are eligible to get a vaccine to get it when your time comes. That's all I got.
Well, thanks so much for that, Jason. That was a lot of really great information in a short period of time. And I'm sure folks were very interested to hear, particularly around the county operations as it relates to the vaccinations and all that. So thanks for sharing all that. I'm sure folks might have some questions for you, but I'm going to ask them to hold them until the end. And now we're going to turn it over to Svante to share updates from the city's perspective.
Thank you, Jennifer, very much. Thank you. It's great to be with all of you. And I know time is a factor here, and I do want to save time for questions. The chances I've gotten to be with you at the chamber, I know that the questions are the most fruitful part. But I do want to, if I could, just say Jason is characteristically humble. There's no better place in America to live right now. I mean, I think that's always been the case, but I'm biased. I can say this part without bias. If you had to walk into this pandemic, if a year ago you were given a choice to live in a place anywhere in the country, Tompkins County would be the place you should choose. And that's because of the work that Jason, Frank Krupa, the entire team, Amy Hendricks, Dominic, and Hugo Medical Center, along with, I think it's important to give, my alma mater, who is often upset with me because I'm often pointing out where they are not such good corporate citizens, Cornell University. But those three partners together, Cornell, Hugo Medical Center, and Tompkins County, have done an unbelievable job. There is no team anywhere in the country that did a better job of getting testing up and accessible more quickly, testing more people, now getting the vaccines distributed, all while distributing very high quality information, the information that we need to change lives. It really is an amazing job they've done and continue to do. So I hope you'll join me in giving it up for the Tompkins County team. They really are incredible partners to work with. I want to give you a quick overview of what's happening in the city, most particularly around economic development. I assume that several folks are interested in that, especially, but I'll tell you a bit about everything that's happening, because COVID obviously creates a crisis on three fronts for us. There's the health crisis, there's the economic crisis, and then there's an operational crisis for the city of Ithaca as a government. The health crisis, Jason covered better than I could. So I'll focus on those other two, the economic and operational problems. Operational problems, first of all, I know this crowd knows this, but the city of Ithaca is funded really two major sources of revenue. One is sales tax, the other is property tax. Sales tax collections are way down, 2020. Expected, right? Because where does the sales tax come from? It's a three-part process. Citizen drives to the store, buys something from the store. The local government takes a percentage of that in order to pay for things like the roads that you drove over to get to the store, the police and fire department that keep everyone safe, the building department to make sure that your house and the store will not collapse at any unpredictable moment. Well, obviously, our economy was disrupted. Students being sent home early, stores, restaurants closed, a devastating impact on our finances. And it was a devastating impact on everybody's finances, which is why the federal government put trillions of dollars into relief for businesses and for people. So anybody unemployed got extended unemployment benefits. Anybody who was any businesses that were closed were eligible for all sorts of support, including the PPP. One thing they did not do was support the local governments. So this is now looks like it's going to change. The latest COVID relief bill includes some support for municipalities and states, but without it, we had to make some very hard choices. You might recall that in the beginning of this pandemic in April, the Common Council approved our plan to furlough about a quarter of the staff that work for the city. Most of those furloughed stayed out for about 4 months, maybe 5 months. That saved the city a couple $1 million. Those employees were able to take advantage of the unemployment benefit, which was good for them and made them whole, but it did leave a hole in the city's operations, most notably youth services. But almost everything we did was impacted. And I want to pause here to say what an amazing job our staff did, and they always do. I mean, the empathy that you'll see from, I delivered the news about the furloughs to employees face to face where we could and over Zoom where we couldn't, and to a person. 100 members of our staff, they all, they're worried about their jobs, they're worried about the future, they're worried about their health, the health of their families. But more than that, they cared about the work. And I know that government employees don't always get, they never get the credit they deserve, and they often get blamed they don't deserve. But if you knew how much they cared, that what they cared about most of all was the kids they weren't going to be able to see this summer. The programs they weren't going to be able to operate. Our administrative staff worried that the paychecks wouldn't get out on time because they care about our frontline workers and they want to make sure they're supported. It gave me a new appreciation all over again for how dedicated and hardworking our staff is. And that's why we've really turned a corner. All of our staff have now been unfurloughed or back at work. We figured out how to stand up youth services, mostly remotely, but we've also opened all of our recreational facilities using masks and social distancing, following the guidelines that are laid out and so clearly communicated by our health department. That's a good thing. We've also moved all of our operations online, much like everybody else. And that has created a real opportunity that I want to talk about here, which is that we have several vacancies coming up, both at the county legislature and the city council level. The opportunity to serve the public by sitting on a common council and a county ledge is one that I know there are a lot of barriers to service. I know those barriers as well as anybody, but quite often people were worried if they didn't like being in crowds, or if they didn't like not being able to travel, if they traveled for work, for example. The ability to participate remotely in meetings and to move much of our operations online means that I hope you will, and encourage your friends to take a second look at serving on the Common Council and serving on the county legislature. One of the folks who believes she's not running anymore, Deb Molino, I'm going to run in a write-in campaign against her will to put her back on the council. She's just hearing about this now, and I do believe that we will win. So sorry, Deb. So that's what's going on operationally. Let me talk a bit about the economy. I want to fill you in on a few of the projects that are happening that might be of extra special interest. But again, I said I was going to be short on, I said I was going to be brief. I have trouble being brief. But here's a few things that might be interested, including this top line statistic, which is in the last 18 years, the city of Ithaca has approved about 2,000 new housing units. It's in the past 18 years. Last year, we approved 750. Right? An astounding figure, and one that is poised to change as those projects are about to start construction and then be built and then come online. It's going to change our tax base forever, which is a good thing for taxpayers. It's going to change the challenges of operating the city, but it's going to also change the opportunities for businesses in a very positive way. Maybe the biggest news is the Green Street Garage. Now, if you've been in the Green Street Garage, you know it, I don't know the engineering word for this, but it's crummy, right? It stinks, it's falling apart, it has been for a long time. We've put millions of dollars, and we're really in a no-win situation where the city of Ithaca loses money on parking. Even if you count the money we make from parking meters and parking enforcement, we subsidize parking to the tune of $1 million a year. Last year, because of COVID, we subsidized parking to the tune of $2 million a year. And any new investment in that parking garage would only increase that number, which would increase the tax rate. Well, we thought to ourselves, instead of just rebuilding the parking garage as it is and accepting the loss on it, what could we do to make that land even more useful? So we went out to bid. We found a developer who's building for us starting this spring, not only 450 new parking spaces on the ground floors and above on Green Street, right next to City Hall, but also a ground floor conference center and 200 units of affordable housing, right in the heart of the city, right on the bus line, right across the street from the public library, next door to the City Hall, the best possible place for affordable housing. I saw somebody said, what developer? It's Vicino, who's working with us on, they're already building Art House, which you might see on the waterfront, nearly finished. And they've got good experience all over upstate New York, building and supporting affordable and supportive housing. That was a really big deal. And the chamber was integral to making that deal happen by making the conference center happen. A deal that was struck, a very unique one, again, in all of New York State, in which the hotels in the community were all supportive of a hotel rooms tax. And the governor, who has vetoed all other hotels rooms taxes, has agreed not to veto this one. Will support that room tax, will support a conference center, which will support jobs that already exist on our commons and in our downtown area, as well as supporting the creation of new jobs. And the people who live in that subsidized affordable housing right upstairs are going to be first in line and have a great opportunity at a shot at careers in hospitality that are fruitful and beneficial. And now I promise I will wrap it up. Here's what else you have to know. We approved 21 development projects. That's a total of $214 million of investment in the city of Ithaca. 786 rental units, 235 of them affordable. About 200,000 square feet of new commercial space was also approved. That includes about half of that is the new medical office buildings being approved on the waterfront, and 50,000 is the conference center. We're moving forward on Chainworks. That is a multi-year process, but they've completed subdivision approval for the property. They now have the necessary easements to begin construction for the Gateway Trail. That's going to connect the South Hill Recreation Way all the way around the city to the Black Diamond Trail, something that will attract hikers and recreational enthusiasts from all over the country, really. And we approved the Carpenter Circle PUD, a planned unit development that's going to allow finally the development of Carpenter Circle over on Route 13 near the waterfront, which has long been sought. Last thing I'll mention on the economic development front is we're also finally bringing Ithaca College downtown. Their physician assistant program is going to move completely to downtown Ithaca. It is a graduate program. It takes just over 2 years for young people to move through. And they're making a nearly $6 million capital investment that's going to create 15 new jobs and bring 150 graduate students downtown to the Rothschild building just off the Commons. Public safety, Jason covered well, so I'll skip past unless there are questions. But again, the hundreds of thousands of dollars we saw in donations to youth services, including the huge donation from Purity Ice Cream. Our employees, the way they reacted to being furloughed, the way we saw ordinary citizens step up to provide masks free of charge by sewing and handcrafting those masks in the beginning of this pandemic. What Tompkins County, what Cornell, what Hugo Medical Centers have done to go above and beyond. What our own officers, including the police officer who jumped in the freezing cold water to rescue somebody who was drowning just a few months ago. It fills me with such hope that we're not just going to bounce back. We're not just going to bounce back better, that we've created a portal to a new Ithaca, a new Tompkins County, one in which we're in better communication, better coordination, where there's more trust, more collaboration. Because of that, we're able to build more prosperity and make sure that that prosperity is shared equitably amongst all the people who live in Ithaca.
Great, thanks Svante for all that. So thanks Carly for putting that link in the chat. Before we get into other questions, because you were just talking about this, some people might not know what Chainworks is. And so could you just expand on that a little bit?
Sure, Chainworks is a giant pain in the rear. is what it is. No, it's enormous up on South Hill, an enormous property. I believe it's 100 acres. It's been used for many different things in the past, mostly manufacturing, some power production, and now it is going to be redeveloped as a mixed use, light manufacturing, housing, commercial, and office. About 1 million square feet when it's finished, but it's, it will take enormous environmental remediation as well as a huge investment from David Lumen, who's the owner and primary developer.
Yeah, and so I'll just say this. So there's many places in Ithaca where if you look up on that hill, there's a giant white building with tons of windows on the side of it that looks like it goes on forever, and it actually does if you go up there. I toured the building in a golf cart, if that tells you anything, a few years ago. So, if you can drive around on a golf cart and go quite a ways without turning around, it's a pretty big building, pretty big project. So, so that's what that is. And great. So thank you both again. Great information. Wonderful to see. I think the thing that's really important, and especially as we think about the chamber and we think about our members and business community, and we look towards economic recovery over the next, what's going to be years. I mean, at this point, it's been such a prolonged, such a hugely impactful event that we're all experiencing together. So we are looking at a long haul. But we also, again, continue to be very fortunate as a community, continue to be a bright spot within the context of the bigger picture in a lot of ways. And there are many, many wonderful things happening here, and big projects still moving forward, and development and investment in our community still happening in a way that, I would say 6 months ago, I think I might have been a little more skeptical, a little more cynical. I might have wondered, are some of these things going to keep moving forward? When are investors or when are some of these projects going to stall or start to pull back a little bit? And we're really not seeing that so much. There certainly are a lot of hurdles to jump over with many of these things, but there's still a lot of bright spots and a lot of reasons to be hopeful as a community in terms of our resilience and in terms of our ability to leverage resources and to make investments and to support many, many different types of businesses that might not have such a smooth road to recovery. And then to, again, to have, I think, just looking at our local government entities and our business organizations and so many nonprofits and so many others throughout the community, and seeing people moving in the same direction is a really big asset to our community. And it's not something that you see everywhere you go. And I think the fact that everyone here works so well together and is on the same page often about what's needed and is so good at collaborating is just something that we should be really proud of as a community, and just know that that's what's going to help us keep moving through this and have a sustained economic recovery together. So thanks again for all of your comments, and I want to see now if we have any more questions. People could raise their hand again, or they could drop questions in the chat. We'll try to make sure we get through everything. So Derek Burrows would like to know what sectors of the economy need attention and help, and what can we all do about that? It's a really good question.
Yeah, there's certain demographic, and this actually is probably a better question for Jennifer. But I just started answering it out of habit.
Well, I certainly am happy to hear what you and Jason have to say about this. I mean, certainly the hospitality sector, which includes as an extension all of our restaurants, all of our retail stores. If you all think about anyone that relies on visitation, visitors to our community, or anything that relies heavily on foot traffic, right? And you think about all the different times that all of us have not been able to go into retail stores as often as we would, or out to dine as often as we would. There's no question that that sector and those businesses are the absolutely most heavily impacted of everything, because most other components of the business community were allowed to reopen sooner. Some of them were never closed. If you think about the ability to go home and work remotely and keep doing your job or keep running your business, anybody who was able to do that and do things under relatively normal conditions is obviously in a very different position than some of the folks that really rely on all of that consumer spending and all of that foot traffic and all those overnight stays, et cetera. And I think we all know, I think most of us know the extent to which, people think about tourists. When we say visitors, people might think different things. They might think about tourists. They might think about people that come in the summer months to look at waterfalls or hike our trails. But I don't know that everyone understands the extent to which the students being here, the people that visit the students, the parents, all of those weekends, all of those graduations, alumni weekends, parents weekends, et cetera, every single one of those weekends has a huge economic impact on our community. And so to not just have a couple of them gone, but to have all of them gone for a prolonged period of time, we can't really overstate the impact on those sectors, I think. That being said, I think it's been pretty incredible to see the way the community has also stepped in and supported some of these businesses. And, I heard very different things from different retailers as far as how their last quarter went last year, in part because our local community really stepped up and has really intentionally tried to support local small businesses, support restaurants, et cetera, et cetera. And yes, the arts and culture organizations, the theaters, the nonprofits that are also tangentially related or directly related to all of that same consumer activity that I mentioned have also been heavily impacted. Anyone else who, I guess, Svante or Jason, if you want to jump in and add anything to that.
No, that's exactly what I was going to say. And I think we just have to keep an eye on what that means demographically. Those sectors are, you have an overrepresentation of women and people of color. And so when we're saying people coming out of this pandemic unemployed and underemployed, and the folks who have gone months without pay or raises, it is those folks, it's people of color and women. And so the inequalities that existed before, and this is sort of how inequalities develop, are only widening. And we as policymakers, business owners, and as citizens just have to keep an eye and a mind on that and help and let that inform our choices.
Yeah, I would agree with Svante in terms of the workforce that's impacted differently with this recent past year than say 10 years ago with the Great Recession. It's a different workforce that's impacted. It's a lot of service industry. It's a lot of lower paying positions that are impacted in different ways than it was before. How long that'll last, I think is unknown at this point. And that's partly what we're trying to identify in terms of what workforce needs will be moving forward in a post-pandemic period. I can tell you everything you said, Jennifer, is accurate, and it's reflective in the sales tax receipts in the county. So for example, Tompkins County was number one in being the worst in 2020 sales tax receipts compared to 2019 of any county in the state of New York. And that, I think, is a combination of the tourism industry being hit hard, travel being hit hard, and higher ed not being present just due to the nature of the pandemic, and obviously not having things like graduation is a big impact as well. So that also suggests and would contribute to why sales tax was low, significantly though, the worst in comparison to 2019. That said, going into this type of economic downturn, you also, this area also had a huge, stronger foundation than most. So our ability to hopefully to recover will be better positioned than most economies will be from a regional perspective. So that's all I can add. I think both you and the mayor covered a lot of it.
Does anyone have any other questions? Trying to see if I missed anything further up in the chat.
Dr. Moore has his hand raised.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, Dr. Moore. Good to see you.
It's good to see you too. And thank you for all the work you're doing. I just want to, it's having reviewed all the great work that my colleagues have done, because I'm really more in the business mode than I am in the direct clinical care these days. But the healthcare sector has been driven to its knees. and financially. And you haven't seen doctors shying away from their job. You haven't seen nurses, but there were lots of layoffs. I know many practices, not necessarily locally, who are on the verge of bankruptcy. And hospitals, including CMC, are in great distress, financial distress. And it's the business model of medicine, not the clinical model of medicine. And so I think that there will come a time, and I also know that there's a lot of focus in the healthcare community on trying to maintain wellness during times of extreme distress, where the medical personnel, healthcare personnel, are working harder and getting less than ever. And there will come a reckoning sometime when COVID is beyond us, that healthcare will undergo a great revision. And I'm not sure exactly what that's going to look like. I don't think anyone knows what that's going to look like. There's discussion among healthcare economists about where that needs to go, but that will impact Tompkins County and Tompkins County employers somewhere down the road. And we need to be aware that that's coming. It's going to be, it'll come after, because in the crisis, everybody's responding appropriately to the crisis. But there are tough times ahead after COVID for your healthcare system.
Certainly important information and perspective there. Being told you can't do most of what you normally do, like many businesses have, but then also you have to provide a whole lot of services at almost no cost because, you know, everyone's doing what they can to respond to this crisis, and you can't get on and do normal business until you deal with the emergency, right? So absolutely important for us to understand. Does anyone have any other questions or comments? Well, I think, again, thank you to Jason and Svante. I know we also maybe had a couple people who are interested in sharing or doing a little networking who didn't get a chance at the beginning. I don't know if they're still here or if anyone wants to put their hand back up. We're grateful for everyone's time and engagement today and looking forward to seeing you again really soon. So I'll turn it back over to David to facilitate the rest. And I actually have to jump out for a regional task force meeting. So I'll see you all very soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer. Earlier, Bert was on the call and he had wanted to share out something about something he had going on as a share, as an initiative or a program, but I don't know if Bert is still with us. All right. Is there anyone else who had anything going on in the community that they wanted to share, and an initiative, an upcoming event, an upcoming program? I see Deborah Hoover's raising her hand. Thank you for being here, Deb.
Hi, you can call me Debbie.
Thanks, Deb.
I'm Debbie Hoover, the branch manager for Tompkins Trust downtown here on Seneca Street. And just wanted to mention to everyone, if you don't already know or haven't heard, and to share this information, we are in the midst of PPP draw number 2. So the payroll protection program funding that the SBA has approved the second draw for. So at this point, you do need to be a current customer with us and have either a deposit or a lending relationship in order to qualify to apply through Tompkins Trust. Not sure if down the road we may open it up to non-customers, but you do need to have had a relationship with us as of January 13th, 2021. But if any of you hear anything out there or talk to any colleagues or people and you hear that, let them know that we are accepting applications. It's on our website, and there is a lot of information out there on what the qualifications and eligibility requirements are. So please share that, or you can direct them my way as well. I'll be happy to help them through. So just wanted to share that.
Thank you for that, Debbie. I know that's really important. That new round of PPP is going to really help people out. So thank you for sharing that with us publicly. It'll be interesting to see if you guys will be also allowing that resource for people that are non-members of the bank as well. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Something that we have coming up, I just remembered on February 10th, we have the Chamber's Business After Hours, and we are actually partnering with the county again to bring you that content as well as business leaders of color. Our focus for our February Business After Hours is going to be on recognizing Black History Month, as well as some of our Black-owned businesses here in the community. In addition to that, we will also be welcoming our new diversity and inclusion officer, Miss Deanna Carruthers, to that event. Deanna will present about what her role is in the county and also help lead some breakout sessions that we're going to be hosting during that BA. So it'll be a lot of fun content. I'm still trying to lock down Leslyn. No pressure, Jason or Svante, but if you see her, just let her know that I'm hunting her down so I can get in touch with her about this event. And it's going to be very robust and very informative. And so hope as many of you that can make it can register. I went ahead and put that link in the chat as well. So if there are no other presentations or small elevator pitches, or if there's no other questions for Jason, I think Svante had to hop off here. I would like to conclude this networking at noon session. I do want to again thank our sponsors, Schwab Walker, the Hilton Garden Inn, CFCU, and Sheldrake Point Winery for making this possible. I do want to again extend a huge gratitude to Jason and Svante for both making their time available, and to everyone who was able to make it on to Net at Noon today. As we continue the series throughout the year, we are going to be finding different and fun ways to allow networking to take place, whether that be through breakout rooms, whether that be through prompts that we're going to be asking attendees in advance, or polls. So stay tuned for that, because all of that fun stuff is coming. Net at Noon will still happen monthly on the third Thursday of every month with the Chamber. So I don't see any other hands popping up, and I do see people peeling off. Hopefully everybody has time to grab a little bit of lunch or something if you already didn't. And stay safe, stay healthy. And if I don't see you again before, have a great weekend, and we'll be in touch. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good seeing you.
Thanks.